Have you ever noticed how some parts of yourself stay hidden, locked away in silence, unspoken, almost forgotten? Like a shadow lurking just beyond the edge of your awareness, quietly shaping your thoughts, your fears, your desires. Have you ever wondered why, no matter how much you try to shine in the light, there's a part of you that resists, that pulls back, that feels restless, misunderstood, or even dangerous? It's not weakness, it's not a flaw. It's your repressed self, what Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow isn't some dark villain to be feared or suppressed. It's a reservoir of raw truth, hidden memories, and forgotten parts of your identity. It holds the emotions you've been taught to hide, the anger, the shame, the vulnerability, and the power you denied yourself. This shadow self influences your choices, your relationships, your self-image, often in ways you don't even realize. But here's the secret. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your unacknowledged self begging to be seen, felt, and integrated. It's the part of you that has been pushed away because it was inconvenient, uncomfortable, or dangerous to admit. Most people spend their lives running from this inner shadow, trying to outshine it, ignore it, or bury it deep beneath layers of good behavior and approval seeking. But it doesn't disappear. It grows stronger in the dark, shaping your fears, your self-doubt, your hidden patterns, until one day it bursts through, sometimes in ways that surprise and confuse you. Have you felt this? That quiet unrest beneath the surface? That feeling that something essential in you has been muted? This isn't a weakness, it's an invitation. An invitation to explore what's been hidden, to reclaim parts of yourself lost to fear and conditioning. And in this exploration lies a powerful transformation, a way to become whole, to reclaim your true self beyond the masks and expectations. So, what if you stopped running? What if you leaned into that shadow? What if you let it teach you who you really are? Now, imagine if you stopped pushing that shadow away. What if, instead of running from the parts of yourself you hide, your fears, your anger, your doubts, you welcome them in? Have you ever noticed how much energy you spend pretending everything is okay? How much effort goes into controlling your image, managing others' expectations, keeping the peace at the cost of your own truth? What if you stopped? What if you simply allowed yourself to feel what's real without shame or judgment? What would happen if you stopped explaining yourself so much? Stopped over-apologizing for your feelings or your limits? What if you gave yourself permission to be imperfect, to be messy, to be whole? It's uncomfortable to admit, but most of us live as fragments. Half of who we are shown to the world, the rest locked away. This split creates tension inside, a quiet rebellion against your own facade. Have you felt it? That restless whisper inside that says, this isn't all there is. What if you stopped hiding? What if you met your shadow not as an enemy, but as an ally? What if the parts you've buried held the key to your freedom? Think about the moments you felt most drained, times when you gave away your energy trying to be someone else's idea of good. Now imagine reclaiming that energy. What could you do with it if you redirected it inward? This is not a call to chaos or recklessness. It's a call to honesty, to courage, to you. Because the only way to become whole is to face what you've been running from. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready, right now. Ask yourself, what part of me have I been hiding, and what would happen if I let it speak? If this resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe and join this journey of self-discovery and healing. Drop a comment below, even if it's just, I choose myself, to let me know you're here, ready to reclaim your energy. You're not alone. We're growing stronger together, one step at a time. Thank you for being here. The truth is, most of us live trapped in a pattern of emotional self-abandonment without even realizing it. We believe that being available, always open, always responsive, always accommodating, is a sign of strength, kindness, or love. But what if I told you that this availability is actually a trap that drains your energy, fragments your sense of self, and leaves you vulnerable to manipulation? When you constantly react to the world, when you wear your heart on your sleeve and expose your feelings to everyone around you, you are handing over your power. You're giving away your emotional currency, your psychic energy, to people who may not deserve it. You become predictable, and predictability is weakness in disguise. Have you noticed how some people seem to feed off your reactions? They provoke you, push your buttons, and then watch as you fall into their emotional game. They don't need to say much. Your responses say it all. Your openness becomes a map for their manipulation. This isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about recognizing the cost of being too available emotionally, because the more you give away your energy, the more you abandon the parts of yourself that need protection and care. This abandonment isn't just external, it's internal. It's a slow leak of your essence, a quiet surrender of your boundaries. And it happens not because you want it to, but because you don't see the cost until it's too late. Many believe that emotional availability equals emotional health, but it can become emotional exhaustion, a constant cycle of giving, reacting, explaining, and rescuing, leaving you empty and disconnected from your core. What if you stopped reacting? What if you held space for your own emotions before offering them to others? What if you realized that saying no or not now was an act of strength, not selfishness? You're not just losing energy, you're losing yourself. This is the unseen truth beneath the surface of everyday interactions, and it's the reason why so many feel lost, drained, or overwhelmed without understanding why. Carl Jung, the father of modern depth psychology, understood this shadow world like no one else. He once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." This simple yet profound truth reveals how deeply connected our inner world is to the people and situations that trigger us. Jung taught that the psyche is divided into parts: the conscious self we present to the world, and the unconscious, where our shadow resides. The shadow is not just the dark or negative parts of us, it includes everything we deny, repress, or fail to acknowledge about ourselves. And those parts don't disappear when ignored. They grow stronger in the background, influencing our emotions, decisions, and behaviors. Every time you say yes out of fear, fear of rejection, abandonment, or judgment, you bleed psychic energy. Jung called this the draining of our vital life force. This energy is sacred and finite, and how you spend it shapes your reality. The shadow is like a hidden reservoir of power and potential, but it's also the source of our greatest fears and vulnerabilities. Integrating the shadow means facing these uncomfortable parts, not with blame or shame, but with compassion and curiosity. Jung's concept of the persona is also essential here. The mask we wear to fit in, to be accepted, or to protect ourselves from rejection. But when we rely too heavily on the persona, we disconnect from the authentic self beneath. The gap between persona and shadow creates inner conflict and exhaustion. Imagine carrying a mask that's heavy with expectation while trying to silence the voice inside that demands to be heard. That tension is felt as anxiety, restlessness, or even depression. Jung's work invites us to look inward and embrace all parts of ourselves, even those we fear. Because healing comes from integration, not denial. When you stop fighting the shadow, it stops controlling you from the shadows. This isn't just psychological theory. It's a practical roadmap to reclaiming your energy, your power, and your wholeness. You keep giving. You keep showing up emotionally, mentally, physically, because you fear being left behind, because you want to belong, because you believe that if you don't, someone else will take your place. But in the process, you abandon yourself. Every time you say yes when your soul wants to say no, you lose a piece of your peace. Every sacrifice you make to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to be liked or accepted, costs you something deeper than you realize. It costs you your energy, your clarity, your sense of who you really are. Emotional availability becomes emotional currency, and not everyone is worthy of spending it on. People want what you give them, not who you are. They want your reactions, your explanations, your apologies, but not your authentic self. You become a caretaker, a fixer, a sounding board, a crutch. But rarely do they see you. Rarely do they honor your limits or your needs. This transactional dynamic creates an endless loop. You give more, they take more. You feel depleted, invisible, used. Have you noticed how exhausting it is to be everyone's emotional safe space and yet feel completely unsafe in your own? How draining it is to give your energy without boundaries, hoping that someday you'll be enough. But enough for whom? The truth is, the world doesn't owe you understanding. It doesn't owe you kindness or recognition. What the world responds to is your energy, how much you give, how accessible you are. And when you give too much to those who don't deserve it, you lose yourself. This tension between who you are and what you give is the root of so much pain, frustration, and burnout. It's the emotional exhaustion that comes from being too available and not protecting your boundaries. But here's the good news. You can change the game. You can learn to guard your emotional currency like the sacred resource it is. You can become selective, not cold, not distant, but intentional, because your peace, your energy, and your wholeness are worth protecting. If what I'm sharing here is hitting close to home, take a moment to reflect. Notice where you've been giving too much of yourself, emotionally, mentally, energetically, without receiving the care or respect you deserve. This isn't about blame or shame. It's about awareness. Awareness is the first step to change. So I invite you to join this space of honesty and growth. If you feel ready to start reclaiming your energy, your boundaries, and your peace, write in the comments, "I choose my peace." You're not alone in this. Many of us have walked this path of awakening, the realization that being available all the time is not a virtue, but a vulnerability. That saying no or stepping back isn't rejection, it's self-respect. When you claim your peace, you're sending a message to yourself and to the world that your energy matters, that you're no longer willing to be drained by emotional demands that don't honor your worth. This community is a place for those who want to take their power back, who want to break free from the cycle of exhaustion and self-abandonment. Your voice matters here. Your experience matters here. So if you resonate, drop that comment. I choose my peace. Let's create a space where we can support each other in this journey toward wholeness. Remember, transformation begins with one small decision, one choice to protect yourself, to honor your limits, and to reclaim your sacred energy. Here's the harsh reality. Many people operate by silently manipulating emotional predictability. They don't always shout or demand. They wait for your reactions, because your emotional availability is their playground. Carl Jung called this phenomenon projection. Projection happens when others cast their own unresolved fears, insecurities, and shadows onto you, using you as a mirror for their inner chaos. The more emotionally available and reactive you are, the easier it is for them to project onto you. You become a living canvas for their fears and frustrations. Think about it. When you are predictable, when you always respond, always explain, always accommodate, you give away your power. You hand over the keys to your emotional kingdom, and those who thrive on control, manipulation, or emotional games will quietly use that to their advantage. But here's the catch. The moment you step away, when you stop reacting, stop engaging in their emotional drama, that chaos comes home to roost. Suddenly, their masks slip, their true colors show, and they panic. This panic reveals the real dynamics at play, because emotional games depend on your participation. Without your predictable availability, their control slips away. You become untouchable. Projection also means that what irritates or triggers you in others often reflects what you deny in yourself. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding those projections. You reclaim your autonomy. You refuse to be the mirror for their shadows. Understanding projection is a powerful step in breaking free from manipulation. It's not about blaming others or excusing toxic behavior. It's about recognizing where your emotional energy is being exploited. It's about choosing who deserves your presence and who doesn't. So who in your life gets irritated when you stop being easy to reach? Who depends on your emotional predictability to maintain their sense of control? This awareness is your first line of defense. Silence is often misunderstood as absence or weakness. But in truth, silence is presence, amplified. In a world filled with noise, constant talking, and emotional reactions, choosing silence is revolutionary. It's a way to step outside the chaos instead of being dragged into it. When you stop responding to every provocation, when you choose not to explain or defend yourself, you remove yourself from the manipulation loops. You become untouchable because you no longer give others the emotional fuel they crave. This strategic silence is not about retreating in fear. It's about claiming sovereignty over your inner world. It's about being grounded in your power and choosing when, how, and to whom you give your energy. Think of silence as a shield, protecting your sacred energy from needless drains. It's a space where you can observe without being observed, respond without being controlled. And here's the thing. Silence unsettles people who rely on your availability. It disrupts their emotional games. It forces them to face their own shadows without the crutch of your reactions. So ask yourself, who panics when you disappear? Who tries to fill the silence with noise, drama, or guilt? In the next part, we'll explore exactly why silence scares manipulators and how you can harness it to dismantle emotional games for good. Psychic energy. Think of it as the vital force that powers your emotional, mental, and spiritual life. It's finite, sacred, and incredibly precious. Every time you react emotionally, whether it's through arguments, explanations, or rescuing others, you spend that energy, and not all spending is equal. Reacting impulsively, trying to justify yourself, or attempting to fix others' feelings doesn't earn you goodwill or peace. Instead, it drains you. It chips away at your core strength. This is not generosity. This is self-erasure. Picture this. Every time you get pulled into an argument, your energy leaks out like water through a sieve. Every need to explain yourself is another hole draining your reservoir. Every emotional rescue mission you take on adds to the depletion. And here's the catch. You might not even realize it's happening until you're empty, exhausted, burned out. That's the trap of being emotionally available without boundaries. You give and give, hoping to be seen, loved, or accepted, but in reality, you're fueling a cycle that leaves you hollow. Carl Jung understood this dynamic deeply. He believed that psychic energy should be conserved and invested wisely. When we guard this energy, we protect our sense of self. When we waste it, we lose ourselves in the emotional noise of others. Learning to recognize where your energy is being drained is the first step toward reclaiming it. It means saying no to unnecessary fights. It means choosing silence over reaction. It means protecting your emotional currency fiercely, because your energy is your power. And how you spend it determines the quality of your life. Now imagine a different way of being, where you no longer respond out of obligation, fear, or the need to prove yourself. Where your yes is sacred because it's chosen, not automatic. Where your energy is protected and your boundaries respected. This is the new self emerging from the ashes of old patterns, no longer accessible to every demand, no longer food for needy souls. You have learned the power of saying no. You have learned to step back without guilt. You have learned to guard your psychic energy as a precious resource. This transformation isn't easy. It requires courage to stand alone sometimes, to be misunderstood, even to be rejected. But it also brings freedom, the freedom to be whole, rare, and unforgettable. You are no longer chasing approval or explanations. You show up authentically, grounded in your own truth. Your emotional availability is no longer a vulnerability, but a choice. By embracing this new identity, you become magnetic, not because you seek attention, but because you are genuinely present with yourself. You inspire others by your strength and your sovereignty. Remember Carl Jung's wisdom. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Becoming whole means integrating your shadow, owning your story, and choosing your energy wisely. This is your rebirth, where you step into your power and say, I am enough as I am, I choose myself. This path of transformation often feels lonely, but this isn't ordinary loneliness. It's sacred space. It's the silence between the old self dying and the new self emerging. A necessary solitude where healing and rebirth take place. You're not losing people. You're shedding roles and relationships that never truly fit your authentic self. You're releasing expectations, patterns, and emotional burdens that weighed you down. This sacred loneliness is the price of sovereignty. The strong don't always have a crowd around them. They often stand alone because they have chosen themselves over comfort and familiarity. But in this solitude, there is power, there is clarity, there is peace. It's a space where you can reconnect with your deepest truth without distraction or compromise. Know this, the loneliness is temporary, but the strength you gain is lasting. You're not isolating yourself to punish or hide. You're creating the space to grow and heal. You're preparing to re-enter the world as a whole, rare, and unstoppable force. Remember, Every hero's journey passes through solitude before the return. Embrace this sacred loneliness. It is part of your transformation and your ultimate freedom. Now you stand on the other side of transformation. The old patterns of being drained and over-available have dissolved, replaced by a powerful new identity. You no longer respond to emotional demands out of fear or obligation. Instead, you respond with intention, with clarity, and with sovereignty. Your energy is no longer a currency spent recklessly. It is a sacred treasure protected fiercely. You have become rare, whole, unforgettable. This new self doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. You are not here to chase approval or explanation. You have chosen yourself, and in that choice, you've found freedom. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." You've done the hard work of integrating your shadow, embracing your complexity, and reclaiming your power. You show up authentically, grounded in your truth, and others are drawn to your presence not because you seek validation, but because you embody strength and peace. This journey was not easy. There were moments of doubt, pain, and solitude. But through it all, you held on to the most important commitment, to yourself. Now, you move forward with confidence, knowing your energy is yours alone to steward. You are no longer anyone's emotional crutch. You are the source of your own wholeness. This is your rebirth, your moment to shine fully and unapologetically. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready. Ready to be misunderstood, ready to stand alone, ready to choose freedom over comfort. This journey isn't for the faint-hearted, but it's for those who know their worth and are willing to protect their energy at all costs. So if you're here right now, reading these words, I invite you to make a commitment. Write in the comments, "I choose myself." Let's see how many of us are walking out of the fire, stronger, wiser, and whole. Because when you choose yourself, you don't just survive, you thrive. You become rare. You become unforgettable. This is your path. This is your power. Own it.